I quit because of 10 words that changed my life. I was winning awards, exhibiting my work in galleries as well as museums throughout the world. I was featured in some famous art magazines fairly early on in my career. I was featured in global collections created by famous art curators, and I was generally celebrated as one of the promising artists of that time. I had spent decades crafting my skill in order to chase this dream career, and with one conversation, hearing those 10 words, I knew I was going to quit and walk away from it all. Those 10 words taught me everything I need to know about fame, about money, and about success. Now, that said, I've been postponing on making this video for about 2 years because I'm too afraid to post it. I'm too afraid that if I would share all of this personal info that somehow it will have a negative consequence, somehow it will have some kind of backlash. But if you're watching it, it means that I haven't deleted it. So, let's go. Right after my second year of university, I decided to participate in some art competitions because I wanted to see if my art was any good in the marketplace, decided by other people. And lo and behold, in one of the first competitions I entered, I immediately won the first prize. And so this was the best start that you can imagine, and it gave me a lot of confidence to pursue more of this. And so because of that, I entered a couple of more competitions, and in one of those competitions I didn't win the prize, or any prize for that matter, but there was a curator that selected my work through that competition and featured it in one of her collections that she shared publicly. And because of that, a lot of galleries started to contact me for group shows and things like that. And so this was truly the best start that you can imagine, because usually for a lot of artists it will take a decade or 2 decades to get recognition from some kind of gallery or several galleries. Now, to be fair, looking back, some of those galleries were pretty amazing, but some of those galleries were not really that amazing at all. There was this one guy who lived in Berlin, and he had a huge space in Berlin, some kind of studio space. And what he would do is he would organize exhibitions for young upcoming artists in Berlin, and he would promote it as some kind of major exhibition with lots of people, lots of marketing, lots of promotion and things like that. Now, as a young artist, this sounds amazing because Berlin is one of the 3 major art cities in the world, and so a gallery exhibition in Berlin is just fantastic. And he charged $500 upfront to those artists for marketing materials and some random stuff. And so this is very easy to sell to young and upcoming artists because Berlin, gallery, those words will basically do the trick. Long story short, when the exhibition finally happened and I transported all of my work to that location, I realized a couple of things. Number one, the location of the gallery was complete crap. It was located outside of the city with no foot traffic whatsoever, not a lot of people passing by, a very unimportant district of Berlin. And the thing is, if you don't know anything about the city, you can't see that on Google Maps. You have to ask that, and I, as a young artist, didn't do that. Number two, there were about 40 people coming to the opening, of which 20 were his friends searching for free booze. And so those people are not going to buy anything. Number three, the only marketing that he had done was print out some flyers. And the reason, or probably the main reason he did that, was to be able to physically show that he did something. Number four, considering that about 10 artists showed in that gallery space, I immediately understood that 10 artists paid $500 entry fee. That's $5K that he made that month. I immediately knew that that was his main income source and that I got scammed. And so what can we learn from this? Well, basically the old story. Do your research properly. Ask a lot of questions. Ask how much foot traffic there is. Ask how much marketing that he will do. Ask how he will use that $500 that you pay him. Ask as much as possible. And on top of that, ask, this is the most important thing, ask how much they sold in recent exhibitions so that you kind of know. You have to get insight into that. You have to know exactly how much they sold, not some random fake answer. You have to know, they have to provide that. Now, luckily, there were also some good opportunities, good galleries and good museums. For example, the Coda Museum in the Netherlands, that's kind of a major museum. So I was very happy with that. And I was getting these successes fairly early on. And because of these fairly quick successes in that trajectory, I started to think about that trajectory, started to believe in that trajectory and that career path where artists will first participate in small galleries and group shows, then get solo shows, then go to mid-level galleries, then go to higher level galleries, and perhaps eventually some blue chip galleries if they're lucky. It's a very common career path that everybody is chasing, and because I had such a good start for that career path, I started chasing that as well without really thinking about it. When I moved into your new place, I lost it, little more than space. Now at the same time I was studying art, and so I was learning about the avant-garde artists, the refugee artists, these romantic artists who didn't got accepted early on in their career, then paved their own trajectory and somehow became part of the establishment later on. And I was very much attracted to these lifestyles, to these artists that were groundbreaking, that were breaking the status quo and somehow getting on top. A famous contemporary example of this is probably Banksy, who started making street art. The establishment was laughing with street art. Somehow he became a massive, major, super famous artist, and then now his work is sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars in galleries. Now the problem with these career trajectories is that I thought that you couldn't copy paste these strategies. I thought that these artists were lucky, that there was no strategy that you could distill from that, until I heard those 10 words. Because it turns out there is some kind of red line through all of these avant-garde stories that I wish I knew 10 years ago. Now before I share these 10 words, I have to admit that I kind of lied, because it's not 10 words, it's actually 8 words, but 10 sounded good, so I said 10. And you also have to know that the guy who told me this is extremely rich, and at that moment I had no money. I was not making a living from my art. I was in a fairly low point in my life, and so these words for me had a lot of proof of work and came from somebody who had experiences that I simply didn't have access to, and so I valued these words utmost. Anyway, here are the 10 words, and they are going to be a little bit underwhelming because I've sold them a little bit too much, I guess. Anyway, here are the words. Whoever captures the attention wins the fucking game. Now, this kind of blew my mind, because it suggested that the tool that you use to capture the attention doesn't matter. And I, as a young artist, thought that, for example, having gallery representation, having the attention of galleries and the people that are connected to galleries was way more important than having the same attention on, for example, a TikTok account. But he suggested that this was not the case, and he said that this was complete BS. And he told me that the reason that this is BS is because people always move towards where the attention is and where the money is. And so in the next 1 or 2 years or so, when I was thinking about these 10 words, I started to realize a couple of things. When all the attention was on churches and everybody was going to the church, the artists who made sure that their work was seen in churches won the game. When all the attention was on caves, because that's where the campfires were, that's where the people met with one another, that's where the people slept and felt safe, the artists that made sure that their paintings were painted inside of the caves won the game, and those are the ones that we remember today. When all the attention was on teaching, because quality teachers were very rare and were very highly praised, and there was a lot of money to be made with the teaching industry, the artists that made sure that they were the greatest teachers won the fucking game. We are thinking about Rembrandt, for example, who played that teaching game extremely well. Whenever all the attention was on portrait art and there was no photography, and rich people wanted to have their portraits be remembered through time, the artists that made sure that they were great at portrait art won the game. Whenever the attention was on art fairs, kind of a little bit at this moment as well, the artists and galleries that made sure that they were represented on those art fairs won the game. Whenever the attention was on museums, the artists that made sure that their work was hanging in museums won the game. Whenever the attention was on the streets and people were curious who those illegal bad boy street artists were, the artists that made sure that they were hanging on the streets and were one of those great artists of the streets won the game. And so I started to realize that it's not about galleries, but it's about attention, and that both galleries and successful artists were doing the same. They were both chasing attention. Galleries are seeking out artists that have attention, that have the heat in the moment, and artists are seeking out what type of art forms have most attention and are most wanted in that particular time. And so I started to see this pattern everywhere, over and over and over again. Let's take Instagram, for example. 6-7 years ago, Instagram was the place to be online. It's where all the attention was, all the engagement was there, and a lot of artists were using that platform. And the establishment said that you could not sell art on Instagram. And then 5 years ago, 1 year later, the establishment said, well, you can sell art on Instagram, but only at a price point of $1,000 or less. And then 4 years ago, they said, well, you can sell art on Instagram, but only at a price point of $5,000 or less. And then 2 years ago, they said, well, yes, you can sell art on Instagram, but only at a price point of $100,000 or less. And then recently, we had people selling art for millions. And so this is how it goes. The establishment ignores and laughs with, but then cannot but go towards where the attention is. And so what did I learn out of that for today's landscape? Well, whenever the attention is on NFTs, the artists that move in that space and are becoming very good in that space will win the game. Whenever the attention is on YouTube, the artists that become best on YouTube will win the game. Whenever there's massive amounts of money to be made with online courses, we should be copy-pasting Rembrandt's strategies and start creating online courses.
But don't you for 1 second think that one day lonely I won't be again.
And so in today's landscape, this traditional art career path that I was chasing is kind of worthless. It's worthless to chase galleries when you could be chasing everybody else instead. And the irony of this is that if you chase everybody else instead and succeed and grab that attention, then the galleries will come for you. It reminds me of this beautiful quote of the gladiator. I don't remember exactly how it goes. At some point, Maximus the gladiator asks the slave leader or the gladiator leader, how can I get my freedom back? And the leader says, if you want to get your freedom back, you first have to win the crowds. You first have to win the crowd. I will remember those words for a very long time. You first have to win the crowd. That's basically the arts game for you in a nutshell. And so what does this mean for my art career today? Well, it means that I quit that traditional art career path, that I quit chasing the galleries, that I quit all of that, even though I was very successful in that early on. And that I embrace the new, that I embrace YouTube, that I embrace NFTs, that I embrace online courses, that I embrace where the establishment 10 years, 15 years from now will be going towards. And that is what I hope this video will do for you, that it will somehow give you permission to do the same, that it will somehow give you permission to quit on something that is fairly successful in your life, because you realize that it's okay to quit on something good in order to chase something even better. That said, if you are wondering where all the opportunities are at the moment, where all the attention is at the moment, I would recommend my video 10 most profitable art business ideas. That said, get the hell out of here.